Chris Watling, he's the CEO and Chief Market Strategist at Longview Economics, joins us right now on the show. Chris, good having you. Thanks so much for joining us at Bloomberg Quint India.
Pleasure.
It's a week of a lot of central bank activity from the RBA to the ECB, and back home in India, the Reserve Bank of India come out with rate decisions. What would your view be? Because if the global yields are to be believed, the banks don't have much choice. And in India, because of the higher rates, the expectation is that the rate action could be more than what the market is penciling in right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think globally we've shifted significantly in the last 6 months from a tightening mode that we had at the back end of last year to a loosening mode. And we're seeing that across all sorts of central banks across the world. With very few exceptions. The Bank of England's perhaps one of those exceptions. But actually, if you look at it, the RBA, I think, is going to cut probably this week, or certainly in the next couple of meetings. They've indicated that quite clearly. Your central bank in India is on a loosening bias, and as you say, they've got higher rates anyway. And the ECB's done a bit of easing earlier this year and will probably do some more. I mean, the market is now starting to price in the possibility of another rate cut out of Europe, even though interest rates are already negative. So across the globe, central banks have gone from a real tightening bias at the back end of last year, pretty much across the board in 2018, to a loosening bias pretty much across the board. And rightly so, in our opinion. We think that's what the global economy needs.
Chris, what did you think of the termination of the developing nation status for India?
Say that again, sorry, the termination of?
Donald Trump is rather, starting 5th of June. That's the time that the developing nation status for India gets terminated. So 2,000 duty-free goods and services that were exported to the United States earlier on, don't fall in that bracket anymore.
Yeah, I guess it's another classic sort of Donald Trump move, isn't it? And I guess it plays into this broader remit of the trade war that he's engaged in and trying to, in his mind, make trade fairer across the globe. So, I mean, I don't think it's a big hit for India. As you know, your economy is not a very big importing nation. It's a reasonably closed economy. So these things net are fairly minor. But given that, really, I would have thought if Donald Trump wants friends in Asia, India is an obvious place that he should be and is trying, I think, to befriend. This isn't so helpful, and we've seen similar sort of moves in Japan, obviously a more developed economy, but similar sort of moves with respect to trade. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a positive, but net, I mean, India really isn't, I don't think, an export story. That's not the main driver of the economy. So in terms of the economics, it's a minor irritant. In terms of the geopolitics, I don't think it's a very sensible move.
The other point being is up until now, with foreign institutional investors liking the growth story in India and seeing levels of 7+, got probably attracted to investing into the Indian equity markets along with the earnings promise for most of the companies here. But now looking at the fact that we're at multi-quarter lows with regards to our GDP numbers, do you see that could be a deterrent for a big foreign money coming into Indian shores?
Well, it's a deterrent unless we see action from the central bank, which it looks like we're probably going to see. So really, you want to buy a stock market, theoretically, when the economy's at slow levels and the central bank is starting to stimulate. And actually, of course, as you've seen, you want some politics on your side as well. And you've seen that in your market in the last few weeks as Modi's won the latest election. That's obviously very market and business friendly. So you've had that nice reaction in the broader Indian equity market to reflect that. So actually, I mean, I don't think that will deter foreign investors. Foreign investors, as I say, they like a central bank that's cutting rates. They like an economy that's bottoming and they can see some acceleration of growth further out. And they like a good political environment. It seems to me that India's probably got most of those, or most of those should be falling into place in coming months.
Do you see India as a significant outperformer within the emerging market pack?
Well, I think India is a very interesting market and one we're very attracted to, particularly on a long-term basis. What I'm concerned about is it's one of the most expensive emerging market equity markets out there. So it's trading on a high PE ratio on forward earnings, much higher than many of its peers, like China, for example, which is exceptionally cheap at the moment. But on a fundamental economic point of view, from a demographic point of view, from a governance, changing in governance, from the new re-election of Modi, all these sort of factors are real.
All right.
That may be a slight deterrent.
All right.
Okay, Chris Watling, we'll leave it at that. Thanks much for taking the time out and being with us today and giving us your thoughts. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
CEO and Chief Market Strategist at Longview with his thoughts on the markets.